The winter season is definitely the slow sewing period of the year for me, and this year was no different. But I finally managed to get out some of my older projects that went into my refashioning pile and refashioned them. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This video will only have 2 new makes, which are more prototypes but wearable prototypes. But all of the other stuff is either a refashioning, a mending project or a reknit. So I hope that sounds good to you and you have a crafty project on hand to follow me along. First project, or maybe first thing to say in general, I'm not really the person who does a lot of weather appropriate sewing. So in winter I don't have a lot of heavy jumpers or anything that I'm sewing or knitting. It's more on the occasional knit and sewing project that is really weather appropriate. I don't know why that is, but it is. It is like that forever. But I think next year I will maybe actually go back and do, if I have the time, make another coat project so that we have at least one thing that is more or less winter appropriate. But I tend to do really stuff that I need on a year-to-year basis. And the first project I would like to share with you is a little cardigan that is made out of a wool material that I'm not 100% sure what the actual wool content is. It just said wool on it. I think it is a dead stock fabric even. But I wanted to try out and recreate an existing cardigan that I have that is super fitted on the sleeves, and it has more a businessy kind of look. I mean, it doesn't really look like a blazer, but it could look like a blazer. And I wanted to give it a try to draft one pattern that is on a similar vibe like that. And I came up with this little guy here. So I will insert, of course, some pictures. And it is basically a very loose fitting elastic bodice block that I used here. So my elastic bodice block. And I basically, instead of making a t-shirt where you have a higher arm raise, I think is the name, I lowered it a little bit more so that I have more room if I have something underneath. For example, dresses, most of my dresses have a little bit more on the wider arm side, I think is. Yeah, so I have a bigger armhole like this Kalle shirt, for example. And some of my very tight-fitting cardigans, you see it underneath, that you are having a bigger sleeve underneath. So I wanted to mitigate that with a little bit more room in the sleeve, and also the whole sleeve is more loosely constructed. It is not a tight fit. But overall, I'm quite happy. I think the only thing that I might change is the curvature of the side seam. The side seam, that is not a side seam, that is actually the collar piece or the shawl piece. So the side seam has a very curved line, and I think if you have a loose and open cardigan, you don't really need that much curvature since it's anyways open. So I think I will straighten that out a little bit. But yeah, as I said, I also have this shawl piece here. It's just because I didn't have enough fabric, I needed to make a center seam here. But it's basically just a rectangle that goes onto the front piece. I reduced a little bit of the width, so it is not a bodice block that basically goes to the midline. It is more, so the seam is more on the bust area where you would have a princess seam if you would have a woven garment, that is so to say. Yeah, so it's really just a little cardigan, but I wanted to prototype it before I go into either merino fabric, and I have also some of these wool fabrics still left. So I think I will recreate another version of this, but for next seasons. For now, I'm quite happy that I have a second of these tiny little garments. I prefer cardigans over jumpers or sweaters when it comes to on a day-to-day basis, since I found it easier to pull it on and off, especially if you're sitting in an office or at home and work. I found them easier also over dresses than a regular jumper. So yeah, this is my first make. It's a new make, and I definitely intend to, yeah, as I said, make another version of this one. My second make is also a prototype, so to say, where I tried to figure out if I like the length of a knit sweater that I saw. I think the name is I will insert a picture of that sweater, but that sweater goes down to I think it is not really where is that? I think it hits you over the bum and around the low hip, something on those lines. So it is a style that I'm not really confident wearing because my garments usually tend to be dresses, and I think that length is really not the length that you need for dresses. So I wanted to recreate a similar looking style of garment, but in the end I cropped it since I noticed that the length is really an awkward length for my style of clothing. I don't wear a lot of tights or leggings, or even, I rarely have any kind of trousers in winter. I found trousers too cold for me, so I tend to go with leggings and dresses. So I came up with that little knit top, and that one is as well self-drafted. I used the unisex drafting block that I have in the book that I'm using, and that basically lets you draft one piece, which is then divided into front and in the back piece. So the front piece, I think, has a little bit of a shorter shoulder, and the back piece has a longer shoulder seam, so that it has not like an awkward seam placement on the shoulder. It works quite well, but I have to say it is still, I'm not 100% sure. I wanted to have it more oversized, that is why I also went with the unisex version, but I found that the fit, especially in the neckline, I think there is something missing. So I might actually go back if I want to do a similar kind of sweater again, and maybe draft it from the fitted bodice block and then add basically length and fullness in the waist area. But yeah, that is what I did. And also I wanted to give poofier sleeves a try, since I have another knitting pattern that I would like to see, or that I would like to knit. But before I want to knit it, I wanted to give it at least a try with the sleeves, since they have poofier sleeves and I never really wear that. So I made a decision to, it's not like a poofy crazy sleeve, but more straight, and then gather it a little bit in the calf area down here. And I have to say I quite like it. It is, as I said, not super poofy, but it gives a nice little drape to the whole sleeve, and I think it looks quite cute. And so yeah, the original pattern, the original knitting pattern has side slits, and I guess you saw quite a lot of side slit shirts with me last year, and I thought, why not give it a try with that little jumper or sweater. The neckline has just your standard roll neck. I think it went quite well. I just overlocked it and then basted it down by hand to the side seam, that you don't have a very visible seam. And I was afraid to do it a little bit of top stitching with the machine, because I'm not 100% sure if you then lose some elasticity. Yes, I know there's this Sarah and Maraflex threads out there, but I'm not a huge fan of them. So I just basted everything down by hand, and yeah, that is fine so far. Overall, I'm quite happy. I wear it all the time at home. And one thing I think you really cannot tell, I just can now see the difference because I'm that close to it. This sweater is made out of remnants that I had. So I had a remnant that is the bodice part. And since the bodice part, so I managed to get out the back and the front piece. But I did not manage to get out the sleeves. And the sleeve is a second remnant that I had from a different project. And I think, I'm not even sure where I used this one. And I'm not 100% sure where I used this one. But yeah, these were two remnants that I had in my stash. And I smooshed it basically together, since they are looking quite similar. If you're, not that close to it, you cannot really see the difference. But I think you see the difference if you're sewing and you know that this sleeve is more drapey than the bodice. So I think a lot of people will not notice it, but if you notice or look closely at it, you see that the sleeves have a drapier fabric than the bodice fabric is. But yeah, quite happy so that I was able to remove some of my stash fabrics as well. Yeah, I'm super happy that I made this one. I think I will actually, now that I know that I like this kind of style, also reknit something like this. I found it easier to try out things that will be knitted first as garments in sewing, since you can sew it up faster than you knit something. And yeah, I would definitely try to knit something like that, I think now, but for the cropped length, I think, since I think it's a length that suits me better than these over the bum, hip area length kind of sweaters. Yeah, happy as I said, and I will definitely knit a garment that looks similar to this in the future. One negative thing, it is a polyester fabric, or I'm not sure if it's pure polyester or polyester and wool, but one thing that I really don't like about that fabric, that's also why I use it mainly at home, so I wear it mainly at home. You have your hair everywhere, or at least I see my hair everywhere, and it collects hair like nothing. It's crazy. So if you have a cat, definitely not the best fabric to use. So these are the two garments that are completely new that I drafted over the last weeks. I think the crop top I actually showed in my 2024 mix, because I finished it, I think, like on the day of New Year's Eve or something like that. So it was definitely the last project that I did in 2024, but I didn't show it properly here, so I wanted to give it a little shout out since I really like the sweater. Speaking of sweaters, you may remember my DRK everyday sweater that I knitted for Japan, and when I finished it, I noticed that the neckline is too big on me. I will insert a picture also of the previous version, but around the time I came back from Japan, I noticed that it is really too oversized for me on the neckline, and I need to reknit this one. And I think I ripped everything apart in the beginning of January, around the 1st or 2nd or something, and then reknitted everything. And this is the outcome. So I changed a lot of things now for the DRK everyday sweater. And let me get my iPad, because I'm having my notes for that on my iPad. So what I did is I changed my main needle, and I think the rib needle I left, I changed it as well. So I changed the ribbing needle to a 3mm, and for everything that is not rib, so the sleeves and the bodice, I used the 3.75. Oh no, a 3.5 actually. A 7? No, I used. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure if I noted actually the correct needle sizes down in my notes, but I'm pretty sure that I used for the sleeves and the body a 3.75mm needle, so that I met gauge a little bit better, or I get not met the gauge better, because my previous version met gauge when I gauge swatched it, but to give it a tighter knit basically. And yeah, that worked quite well. Now, of course, I have a denser fabric than before. But one thing I changed, and that was the major change, was the neckline. So the previous neckline was super wide and then dropping super low on me. And what I did to figure out, like, okay, how can I tackle that issue? Because I noted that it will not only be solved by using, let's say, the smallest needle size that I can find to make the ribbing out of that, but I used 2 needles to basically pull up the sweater and pull it to a dimension where I would say, okay, that's now the neckline that I want. So I really just used 2 needles, as you would do with sewing. You use the needles to really pinch everything in place, and then you see how much you have to remove from the fabric. I basically did the same with the garment, with the knitted sweater, the first one. So I pinched everything in place, and then I counted the stitches that I had then left on my neckline. And I found that 80 stitches was the neckline that sits the best on me and sits on an or in an area that I wanted it to be. And that is what I then did. So I casted on 80 stitches for my size instead of 120. And that left me with 40 stitches missing. And what I did to get then this 40 stitches was I used the ribbing, I just did the regular ribbing pattern of 5 centimeters. And then for the last row of the ribbing, I already switched to the larger needle size so that I have more room in my yarn. For the first row of just plain knitting, I knitted 2 stitches and then I lifted 1 stitch up so that I always increased after. So I have 2 regular stitches, 1 increase. And then I had the 40 stitches that were missing basically back on my needles after just doing the ribbing and then the first round of knitting. And that gave me basically the starting point that you have in a pattern if you buy the pattern. And that worked out quite well. I researched a little bit if you should do such a tight increase on a yoke increase based sweater. And the comments were a little bit different. So some people said they didn't have any issues, but some mentioned that the row that you increase on can get super tight, and I didn't want to have a very tight row on the ribbing since you never know if you then get it over your head. That is why I changed to the bigger needle size, hopefully to get a more flexible row in that sense. And yeah, I have to say everything worked out just fine. And then it was just straightforward following the pattern. The only thing that I did differently, and I can see that even now still there is a little hole. I think maybe there's also one piece of or one strand of yarn left so that I can fix that. But I always had issues when I separated my sleeve from the body, that when I picked up the stitches for the body, that I had always holes on the left and on the right side where you basically begin picking up the stitches for the sleeve. And I think Andrea Mowry mentioned it on one of her knitting podcasts that you then should just use 2 stitches less and make the new stitches, better so to say, where your holes would be, so that you increase in the holes that then are more invisible. And I managed to do it quite nicely on one side, but I think the other side, it's actually quite okay. Maybe I just thought that there are more holes. No, it actually looks quite good. So that was the only change that I then did. I didn't do any decreases on the body. I didn't, so in my first version I decreased a little bit on the body to cinch it more in, but I did not do this with this version. And also on my sweater, on my sleeve part, I always, the first sleeve I always knit basically with trying on and checking what the fit is, because if I would follow the number of decreases that a regular knitting pattern gives you, I will end up with an arm sleeve that will not fit this part, because I know that my arms are quite wide or big in that size when it goes up to this area, and then the most decrease is actually here for me. So that is the thing that you notice if you're knitting your first garment, and you notice the sleeve is somehow tight in areas where it should not be tight. So that is why my first sleeve is always a slow knit, since I need to really check, try it on and adapt the decreasing then based on my arms, on my arm size basically. So then the second sleeve is always a faster knit, but I made one little mistake and I knew it after I blocked or after I washed the sweater to block it. The arms grow a little bit more than you think when you knit it. And that leaves me with arm length now that are just that little bit too long. I think it's not that noticeable, I hope. And maybe it's also not a bad thing, but 1 or 2 centimeters less on the one side would have been perfect. But I'm super happy that I reknit this one, and I can finally wear it maybe for the last month until it will be too warm. But now that the temperatures are picking up in Berlin, we will see. But I think it will also be a versatile piece to just wear instead of a jacket. So yeah, it took me around 2 months, I think, to reknit this one. And I basically focused on the evenings, on really knitting on this one quite a lot, so that I can finish it faster and have at least a month of wearing this garment. So yeah, super happy that I finished it in time, so to have at least 1 month, but also happy that I reknitted, because now really the fit is better. One thing that I noticed though is the density of the fabric that you create is so different now. Before, I would say with the 4mm needles, even though it's just like 0.25 millimeters bigger, it is a little softer, I would say, and more flowier. So I think I actually prefer the 4mm needles with that wool because it gives the better look. But I mean, I can live with that. I mean, I will know it for maybe the next sweater that I will knit out of this yarn, that I try to find a pattern or basically draft a pattern around this 4mm needle size, but that is in that sense the only complaint, and that is not even a real complaint. But yeah, do I have anything else? Oh yeah, one thing now that I look at my notes, I always have a problem. And I noticed that with most of the knitting patterns, and I think it's not a pattern problem, but a body issue in that sense. I mean, not an issue. My body definitely, or my back has a different shape than what people tell you to do in knitting patterns. So in that knitting pattern, you are creating the rise of the neckline with short rows, which works perfectly. You can see it here. You have a nice scoop necked. But I have then, if I knit it down, the problem that my front and my back will never align. And I mean, yes, you have boobs, that is one thing, but I noticed that in all of the patterns so far that I always have this tilt, so the front is longer than the back, and I really don't like that look, unless you're really going for that angled hemline. But I did not want to have an angled hemline here, so what I did in the end, before I started the ribbing, was having 8 rows of short rows, so that I have, I think it was 8 rows in total, or 8 wrap and turns. I think it was not 4 rows and 8 wrap and turns. I think it was, so that I basically curved the hemline a little bit more, and I think now it really looks even. I mean, yes, you can also do a lot with blocking, but I noticed that on all of my knitted garments so far that I have that angle issue. So this is one thing that I then changed as well, or not changed in that sense, but adapt the pattern to my needs and make it more usable for me. Okay. Definitely the biggest project of this winter season, because it was 2 months of knitting, constant knitting, and even though I finished it and I thought, oh, thank goodness I'm done with knitting, I think the second day after that I finished that, I picked up the needles again and I started knitting. So yeah, that I have something to do in the evenings. Yeah, the next project that I would like to share with you is a mending project. I have this beautiful Kalle shirt dress that I made a while ago, but I did not take a picture of it. I had a lot of issues with the hemline. It didn't look great at all, and I need to redo the hemline on the bottom and also redo some of the armholes. So all of my Kalle shirts, or shirt dresses, as you can see since I'm wearing it as well, I don't use the sleeve bands that you have. I don't like the look of them, and I think, I prefer them without. So I'm always having the bias binding then in the neckline, in the armhole as well on the hemline as well. In general, I prefer the look of the bias binding. But I did some mistakes with this dress, so it went into my mending pile and it was there for quite a while. And now I have finally finished it and mended everything, and now I can wear it again. But I think if I hold it against my face and that you can see it with my hair color, I think this will unfortunately go not very well with the current hair color. I might actually go away with it when I have a ponytail. I will check that. but I would really like to wear this dress again because it's just so beautiful. This is I think it is a Japanese cotton lawn fabric that I got in one of the shops here in Berlin once. And I'm super in love with that fabric. I have luckily some of that left for maybe a little cropped front tie shirt or blouse, better to say. But one thing that I noticed is it is a little bit more stiffer, or on the stiffer side. So for the Kalle shirt, I found it just a little bit too stiff, but nevertheless it's beautiful for summer and to wear it in the summertime. So this is the regular shirt dress or tunic length. What is that length? But yeah, there's I think it's the regular length, the regular shirt dress length, whatever. Yeah, this is the one, and I'm super happy. I will insert also some videos of me wearing this one, but yeah, quite nice that I have it back in my regular rotation now. I mean, when I can figure out the hair color and hairstyle so that this works with everything together. The last two projects are basically the same, but they are two different refashionings. I made myself, and for that I need my notebook actually, since I have my sewing notebook. This is quite chunky, since I have always or not always, I think last year I was quite lazy, but I keep some fabric swatches as well next to my notes, so that I see what kind of fabric I used, or if I have some specifics for how to wash that fabric, I will note that down as well. So back in, what was it, 2022, I made the Sirocco jumpsuit by DRK. Since I saw it everywhere, and I have a, what is the name? The Zadie jumpsuit from Paper Theory, I think is the name. And I love the Zadie, and I mean, I wear it only during the summertime at home. I rarely wear it outside, but I thought that I would wear the Sirocco jumpsuit outside. And I noticed that the Sirocco is, I don't find it practical. I really love the pattern and it looks great if you just wear it for a photo, but I don't find it very useful in my wardrobe. I don't want to get undressed in a bathroom, and especially if you're out somewhere else, not the biggest fan of that. So I had one that I will show in a moment that fits me perfectly, I would say, that I thought I would wear at home for working, since it looks so nicely done if you're in a meeting, so everyone thinks that you wear regular clothes and not your secret pajama. And the other one that I made was the prototype. So the prototype is a size 38. That was the size that the pattern said that I should make it out of. And I will insert a video of me wearing this one, and I think I am not wearing the jumpsuit. I think the jumpsuit is wearing me. I think it looks horrible. It is made out of a viscose jersey, and I think the pattern calls for a viscose jersey or a stretchy one, but I did not like it at all. And I really love the pattern or the fabric that I used for the upper portion. This palm leaves, a little bit abstract, green and pinkish color. And what I did is I basically removed the trouser part, and I just have this shirt part now. And I did not have too much fabric of this fabric left, since I made a shirt years ago out of this one, and I really like that shirt. I wear it a lot. So I really tried to make something out of this one so that I have a second shirt in the same fabric. But that was easier said than done, because I had only, I think, 60 centimeters by 20 or 30 centimeters left. So there was basically nothing really left. I mean, maybe 60 by 40, I think was it. And I thought, okay, how can I do it? I cannot definitely do one continuous panel under this waistband. That did not work, since there was simply just not enough fabric left. But I tried to make one panel that is for the front part, that is just one continuous panel that really looks like a panel that is not smooshed together and nothing. It looks very presentable. But for the back, I had really the issue I did not have enough fabric, and so I had to pattern, moosh everything together. I have one main panel in the back and one side panel on either side. And even the main panel in the back has one seam, since I didn't pay attention while cutting out, and I cut it out the piece with just a little bit less fabric, and that was definitely not a good idea. So yeah, I also could not close the side seams, but I thought it is not that big of a deal. I mean, I will wear it, I guess, as well, mostly at home for work, and I'm anyways then wearing it maybe with some leggings underneath. So I thought if it has side slips, my leggings are high enough that are going up to the waistline, so it's not like you're showing your belly all the time. And I just let these little side slits open and just closed it a little bit after the waistband. But yeah, that is the one thing that I did. I'm quite happy with that one. It really looks cool, and I think especially now that we are going to the warmer months, it will be quite useful, since you have this little ventilation slit, and I'm sitting here next to the window as well when I'm working, and south-facing window, and the sun can be quite brutal, so I'm often escaping this area actually, since it is so sunny, but sometimes I can't. And then it's quite nice to have a little shirt that has side slits that gives you a little bit of ventilation, hopefully in the summer times. And yeah, but it's definitely now more useful than as it was previously when it was just a Sirocco jumpsuit. I did not do any refashioning on the pants part yet, because I was not sure if I will go with the McCall's M.6 pattern again, for a very lightweight pair of summer leggings, for at home basically as well. So I will check out what I will do with the pants, but it's very likely that these one will become a pair of lightweight leggings on one point. But I have them still in my bag, and they will be used for some leggings. So this was the prototype Sirocco. And then I had the real Sirocco, and for that I got myself a border print, I think, not a panel print. And that is this gray with flowers dusk gray with pinkish and bluish flowers all over it. And I did order 2 panels and I barely made it the Sirocco out of it. The original pattern has continuous leg pattern. That is what I'm searching for. And I did not have enough, so I had to make these little cuffs here with the leftover fabric. So my idea was to really center the border print in the middle area, so around the waist. And everything that was then more away from that part had here and there some of, I think it's bees. Yeah, it looks like bees. And then on the furthest away part there, it was basically just that gray, and then I had enough for making just some cuffs. But I basically ripped it apart on the same area I did it with the first one. So I removed the upper area from the pattern, and I wanted to try to make another shirt with that upper area, but I could not find the leftover fabrics that I had from this pattern, from this fabric, and I might have thrown it away. I'm not 100% sure, and I kept the upper area as well in the back to maybe hopefully when I find a similar gray fabric, or if I can find the leftovers that I had, and then I will refashion this one as well. But right now it really looks ridiculous on me because it's super short. But yeah, so the focus here is on the pants part, on the bottom part, and I wanted to make this pants because they are super nice fitted on me, just to make a regular sweatpants out of them. I was anyways in need for one more pair of sweatpants for at home. I mean, you can never have enough sweatpants to lounge in. And I found that this fabric actually looks so nice and beautiful. It's just a perfect pair of sweatpants, and I didn't want to waste this beautiful fabric and not wear it. Before I started the refashioning on the prototype Sirocco, I thought, oh, it's such a beautiful fabric. It really looks great. I really like the style on me when I look at it, but I was like, yeah, okay, let's wear it just more often. And then I tried to wear it for the rest of the day. And I think it was midday, and it annoyed me just so much that I had to get undressed all the time. I went to the bathroom, that I said, no, I will not trick myself basically and saying like, oh yeah, I will wear it just more often, because I then anyways will never do it. And so I basically did the same operations as I did to the other Sirocco, and now I have a nice pair of sweatpants on hand. So yeah, this is basically my last refashioning make. I still have a cupboard full of refashioning things, and I hope I will get to some of them in the next weeks, months, so that I can also start wearing some of the other stuff, or at least make a start or make a plan on some of the things that I have in that thing. And that wardrobe and that cupboard. But yeah, I'm quite happy that I at least made a start on it, even though that it's just 3 things that I did. Yeah, but I'm quite happy that I finally started, because yeah, I tend to ignore that pile, but now I have a label on it that says like, hey, attention please, do something with it. And so I'm quite happy that I took the time to do these projects, even though that now when the sun comes out, my energy is back, I think, and I cannot wait to make some dresses, some new ones. But yeah, I'm happy that I took my time, but do some refashioning and have that cupboard maybe on 1.3 for some other stuff. But yeah. So that is my makes that I did over the last weeks. I'm currently working on my bike bag as well. Another point on my list for this year that I'm currently tackling, and I hope that I can finish this for the next video actually. I think I will. But yeah, I'm quite happy that I now really have the focus list in my head, that I don't go too much left and right and be distracted all over the place, even though I just found one pattern that I forgot that I have it, and that might distract me a little bit longer from my bike project. But I think, yeah, I'm happy that I made the start with the refashioning, now with the bike bag, and when the sun comes out more, then I have more time to do some dress projects, I think, or more garments. It's also garments, but dress garments that I'm definitely more excited about. Yeah, I hope you found it interesting, and I maybe even could encourage you a little bit to start that refashioning project of yours that is lingering in your stash for weeks, months, or even, as it was in my case, for a year, to start it and finish it and be happy and wear your makes with pride again. Let me know in the comments down below if you have any projects on hand, and I hope I will see you here next time. Have a very good weekend and crafting ahead. Take really good care. Bye bye.